Hi, everybody. I'm so excited that you're tuning in to this little workshop that Edward and I are going to be sharing with you today. My name is Tish, if you don't know who I am, and this is my very dear friend Edward. Ed and I met, wow, almost 8 years ago at his
Yeah.
beautiful retreat center. And we were thrown in the deep end with a client that we both were working with. And we realized that we work very similar and that we had very similar values and understanding of how this industry worked. And we were just really getting along from the get-go, which was a really good sign. And ever since then, we've just developed a beautiful friendship. And we've also worked together on different projects. Edward is like one of my genius friends. He's one of those people that can just like basically do anything and everything that he puts his mind and his attention to, and he points at it and he goes for it. But he's really a library of information when it comes to hosting retreats, understanding the ins and outs of what to do and what not to do. And he's also had his own retreat center. So he has a vast experience of understanding the front and the back end of both of these experiences. And he's super into community building. So he has all these incredible projects that he's working on within Costa Rica, which I would love for him to share a little bit about at the end of the call. But yeah, if you want to share a little quick intro, that would be lovely. Thank you, Ed.
Sure. Thanks for having me, Tish. And yeah, I was gonna say we got along well because I recognized you were such a professional event and retreat producer. So I don't get along well with everyone in that space. It was great to meet someone of your caliber. So that's why part of why we got along very well. Yeah, you nailed a few of the points that kind of give me a bit of the perspective that I have in this space. I started as an event producer in New York, so very large events, like 5,000 people and more music events and things like that. So it was a very different, very high level of stress in producing those events. Later, moving to retreats and a healthier lifestyle and things that resonated more for me, and I physically moved to Costa Rica, was a shift in me looking at events and experiences that could help me and others grow, heal, transform, whatever it was. So I found it as a natural transition from festivals and parties, which still existed and still played a role. And we met at a conscious, substance-free festival, in Costa Rica, micro festival. So I think the gamut of the word retreat to event to experience is huge for
Yeah.
whoever's listening, like whatever their passions are. And I think we've both dabbled in a lot of that aspect. Later, when owning like a retreat center and running it, I got to see from a different side, like where retreat leaders were underprepared with certain things, like simple things like schedules and dietary forms, to bigger things like a strong anchored vision or a marketing and sales plan, and seeing that they were stressed last minute with sales. So you start to see, like, as someone from a space and you also knowing as a professional, the same mistakes repeat, the same lessons. So we kind of harvested those over the years to learn, like, how is it to run a retreat center? And always wanted to help the retreat leaders at our place. And so, yeah, now, over, I would say 18 years living in Costa Rica, from building a space to operating a space. Now I help others who build communities and retreat centers. There's still these core questions of how to operate these things well and how to run good retreats and bring the right programming in. So yeah, I stay pretty saturated in this space just now, slightly semi-retired from being in execution mode.
Amazing. Well,
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Yeah, I just love seeing you thrive and moving into these different spaces with all of your experience and just the incredible network of people that you've, built over the last years is so like when I speak of you, I always like people have only good things to say about you, and for me, that's such a valuable thing to have in a friend and in a business colleague where it's like your work is guiding, your name, it's like people know who you are, they know the integrity that you hold and really like what you bring to the table in terms of your expertise. So yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the curator and just kind of invite people into like understanding how this all came about. So I have been in this event industry for the last 10 years. And, I have always found myself being the behind the scenes person, right? So finding clients that are bringing their groups to Costa Rica and then producing everything for them from start to finish. But I've also been in the shoes of putting together my own retreats, and then I've also produced like micro festivals and larger scale festivals like Envision Festival and Cosmic Conversions, all these other festivals where I accumulated all of this experience. And also, I came from corporate, like you, like corporate events with Procter and Gamble and KPMG, and that's kind of like how it all started. But I remember it so vividly. It was about, 8 weeks ago that I just had this deep knowing that there's more people in the world that I know would appreciate learning these skill sets to create events and retreats and festivals and experience design specifically designed with intention and for change. And so for me, the curator isn't just about teaching someone like, oh, this is how you run a successful retreat, or oh, this is how you do festival production, but it's really understanding how to do it intentionally so that the end result is for change, is for evolution, is for shifting the consciousness of the planet. And so I'm really excited to share with everybody from my experience in the last 10 years, like, yes, these are the things that you shouldn't do, and these are the things you should do, but also teaching them an understanding of how to read the energies and the intentions that we weave into these experiences to truly have that end result for change. And so the curator came about, and it's going to be the first time that I'm going to run it this summer. And I'm hopefully going to be doing this at least 3 times a year with small little pockets of people, like maybe 5 people at a time. And then there will also be an opportunity for people, if they wanted to do one-on-one work with me, if they wanted to take their project, might be a small micro festival or a bigger, larger retreat, or even a small one, and help them take it from start to finish and give them all of the blueprints that I can give them. So yeah, with all of that being said, I am super excited for us to dive in a little bit deeper and start exploring some of these topics of conversation. And I think the first kind of segue that we can enter, Ed, is kind of talking about the most common mistakes that retreat leaders make. And it's really interesting. I'll share just one as we enter into this. When I hosted my first ever retreat 10 years ago, it was on a sailboat. And without thinking it through, I had planned this sailing adventure. It was combined with yoga because I just came back from Peru doing my yoga teacher training. But I never actually went with the sailboat captain to the different islands of where we're going to be staying. I just had assumed, the conversations and the emails that we had that, everything's taken care of. And of course, once I got on the boat with the guests, 7 of guests, and most of them was really close friends and people that I had known, we had gotten to these locations and it was disastrous and filthy, and it was just like not up to standard. And it was very belittling and shaming for me because I had all these, high expectations and had people pay thousands of dollars. And so I think one of the greatest takeaways from my first ever experience is ensuring that you do a site visit to the retreat center that you're going to be booking, and checking every single detail from where the guests are going to be sleeping, what is the quality of the sheets, what is the noise sound, what is the food, all of those little things. You cannot just take someone's word from a website or from a phone call and just think that it's going to be the way that it is. A lot of times, people are portraying on websites and selling you the retreat center of the photos that was the retreat center 5 or 10 years ago. And then you get to the retreat center or to the location where you want to host, and it doesn't look the same. So the number one thing I would say, please make sure that you always do a site visit and you go and feel the land and meet the people before you take your people there. Big
Yeah,
lesson.
I love it. That's why you're a pro. You guys have like the best teacher ever. Yeah, the do your own research and go see the site. Like those are things, and I know for you it's common because you have a certain professionalism and diligence, but it's such an important thing that is like a first mistake people make of not going to spend, yeah, because it costs time and money too. You have to go and do a site visit. So I appreciate that share. Yeah, let me think of some of the fun common mistakes people make from my side as well. Yeah, one is organizing, I think, well ahead your program, your schedule, your timeline. I think that was fun to interface with you on, which is, we have a place, so I need to know how many people are going to be there, how many vegans, vegetarians, any allergies, medical conditions. All of this can be remedied by forms, a little schedule maker on Excel or anywhere. But yeah, just I think one mistake is retreat leaders waiting till the last minute to prepare a lot of the simple organizational elements of a retreat. That I think can start 3 months ahead, if not more, 6 months ahead, whenever it is the right time. But I think one mistake is that because then at the very last minute they're rushing to do a lot of things, including sales. And so when you combine like disorganization of the littlest bit potentially with any pressure, like from sales or anything else, that creates well, yeah, it creates a recipe. Yeah.
Yeah, I can piggyback off that, which I think my minimum setting date for hosting and launching a retreat would be 6 months. To give
Mm,
yourself at least 6 months to plan and execute the retreat before actually getting, execute the planning of the retreat before getting to the site. Um, you know, if you have a big following and you have a big list, and you know that by just dropping your retreat, you will have people signing up right away, that then you could potentially look at a 90-day span. But I always say, try to give yourself at least 6 months for planning your retreat and marketing your retreat. That's one of the things that I always, advise my clients is don't take anything less than that, because then everything becomes rushed. Everything becomes rushed, and that energy then gets infused into the experience even from the get-go. If you don't have your systems in place for how to sign up guests and what is the flow of what actually happens once a guest signs up, what is the payment, how does it work, how do you follow up, do you have an info packet already prepared, is all the necessary information in the info packet, then how do you work with your shuttles? If you don't have all those things in place, don't launch your retreat. Because what will happen is you will launch your retreat and you will be unprepared. And then once the guests have already paid, they're waiting and they have no idea what to pack. They have no idea which airport to fly in and all of these things. So my
yeah.
advice is don't launch your retreat before those things are ready, and give yourself at least 6 months to do the proper planning of the retreat.
It's nice that you put it that way, like at least 6 months, because if someone's starting to do, even I know many successful teachers who are really good at what they do, but they, for example, yeah, assume that doing a retreat is easy because they have a big following. And so I say, look, every 6 months is great. You can imagine 2 a year. And if you enjoy it and you want to do more, maybe you do 3 a year. But if you make your calendar, there's not that many months when you look. So I think it's fun to look that way. It's like, how many do I want to do a year? Is it one? Is it two? In the marketing, I wanted to riff on a little bit because here's an area where there's such a wide variety of difficulties and success formulas that probably me and you have both seen. Because, yeah, I would want 6 months market a retreat. And it also depends. I feel like a lot of people have the idea to create a new retreat product and that digital marketing or some amazing person that they'll hire will just fill it. And I unless it's very rare that I see that working. And I feel like diligent work that you've seen and I've seen over time where people build a real offering and a community. And then that community who's learning wants to go somewhere together to learn that. it's a lot easier than just like, let me launch this idea and try to fill it, you know, not to detract anyone who does that. It's just, it creates pressure of like, what if it sells or not? Versus retreat leaders or teachers who I've seen build a community on an offering online in person and say, look, now we're going to do this, whatever it is, 5 rhythms or this workshop on breath or this yoga thing in Costa Rica live for 5 days. It's part of a bigger program or my teaching program. I've seen a lot more friends reach comfortable success there and maybe market to sell a few more tickets that are very profitable online. But having a base audience and having an offering that already has interest, it kind of is harder because you have to work and make your community. But it's one of the formulas for marketing success or challenge that I've seen. It's like a slashy, you know?
Yeah, no,
So, yeah.
100%. I agree. I think another common mistake that retreat leaders make is they they don't necessarily know how to negotiate their contracts. And so this is a really important piece, is understanding like what is the terms and the conditions that you're signing up for with this retreat center, and making sure that you have a signed copy so that if anything happens, that you can go and you can fall back and you can either claim back your deposit or not. And then this kind of brings me to the next point, which is a very common mistake that retreat leaders make, is they don't outline the specifics of their cancellation policy. And it's very important to know that once you have someone signed up and committed, that they know what is the deposit amount and how the payment plan needs to be, and that they need to pay before they actually arrive. I've seen this again and again with people signing up, and then 30 days or 5 days before the retreat, they they want to cancel, and they're expecting of the retreat leader to then give them their deposit back because they're not going, right? So they're not actually taking the experience, so why should they be paying? And if you don't actually have a terms and conditions that you had either sent to them that they had acknowledged, then they can actually sue you for the money. So very important. And these are things that I'm going to share in the Curator program is, standard terms and conditions that you can add to all of your retreats. I'll also be teaching you how to negotiate your contracts. What is legal, what's unlegal, like all of the pieces around understanding like how much of a deposit is fair, and how much should you be paying ahead of time. Also, like tuning into the costs of things. I feel like a lot of times, especially in Costa Rica, there's such a big jump between different retreat centers. And once you know that you can negotiate if you're doing a buyout or if you're doing a smaller retreat, if you know how to have those skills, it can really support you. Because if you're having an 8-person retreat and the retreat center can sleep up to 50 people, you don't want to be paying for the 50 people. You want to make sure that you maybe pay for 8 people and then that you get a special rate for the buyout. Yes, of course, it will be more because you're buying out the place, but there's different ways in how you can approach the retreat centers and giving you a special rate or a discount. So yeah, curious what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's priceless. I love that. That's such a valuable nugget. And sometimes even with retreat centers that both me and I've had friends who I've connected and things haven't worked, and it's actually that negotiation that needs a little bit of, love. Because, there are things like, for example, where the price is okay, but the conditions that are needed are like, hey, I need more time to sell tickets. So let me give you a good deposit like 20%, 30%, but give me up till, let's say 2 months before the retreat to really give the next significant one. So you're not chasing me for money as a retreat leader before I've done sales. So negotiating not like arbitrary dates, but dates that will match real sales targets for you as a retreat leader. Negotiating prices, and also I think you nailed it, like curating the right, like you're so good at this, which is picking the right space for the right group, because you visited so many. But as I hear what you're teaching people, like empowering people to learn that, go look at spaces, see the size of your group, maybe choose a smaller space that you could fill, and it's perfect and you have a successful retreat. So yeah, I think negotiating with spaces, looking along spaces, and I think it's one of the things that's exciting now to like think about, which is we're in like a post pandemic world. The industry has changed a lot. So people often ask me and likely ask you like what's different now, like what strategies in this regard. And I think it's really now more than ever negotiating a good contract and agreement, like you said, where both the retreat center feels like they're happy, they have a new client, and it's a tough market. And the retreat leader also feels like, look, these people have my back. I'm going to bust my butt to fill this thing. But if I don't, within 3 months, I could tell them it'll be half the size and I don't have to commit to the rest of that money. So, we don't have enough time here to go into the details. You will in the course, but I think negotiating, given certain realities that we know now, people cancel sometimes because of last minute travel restrictions. I've seen most retreat centers adapt to that, but you still have to know it as a retreat leader and ask for it.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. I want to kind of zoom in a little bit and talk about, what are some of the formulas for success, for 2023 and going into 2024. Um, I'll share from my personal experience what I'm noticing is that people have less time. So trying to curate an experience of 7 to 10 days is really challenging because most people only have about 7 days off. And so normally they take one day to travel and one day to travel back home. So I would say, creating experiences that are shorter. So 5 days is a really sweet spot. And then I'm seeing is very popular right now. And
Yeah.
what are some of the other things that you feel as we're moving into 2023, I mean 2024 very soon, what are you seeing is happening within the industry?
Yeah, I think one, you nailed it, which is people are sometimes retreats are smaller. Okay. They're not always these 30-person sellouts, which is great. Like a small, impactful retreat of 8 to 12 people, 12 to 15. It's great to run. It's really like you can go deeper. You can charge more if you're like a high ticket offering. So I've seen that. And I love that you said like shorter days. Sometimes a 4 or 5 day beautiful drop in with some people. So those things I think are nice and they're easy for say yes to or budget wise. The other thing I've seen is in a way like the stark opposite, which is certain older teachers doing like year-long programs. So it's a real mastery teaching where there might be 3 or 4 retreats during a year-long teaching of a subject. So I've seen that before, but in the last year, it's really come out as a very cool thing because then the offering is like, let's say, a year of studying like I'm in a shamanism course, from the Queros in Peru, or vibrational healing that comes with a certificate with one of my teachers, Marcelo. So I said, are you doing retreats anymore to one of my older teachers? And he said, I do like once a year, but I'm excited about this certificate. And when he explained it to me, essentially you're learning on Zoom throughout the year, but I believe it's 3 or 4 times a year there's in-person retreats. It's part of the whole year program. It's not like a separate cost. For him, it's awesome because it's a group of students that are going through it. So I thought that was very innovative. I was like, that's awesome. Like it's a different process then. So yeah, that's a cool thing. I think that this year I'm like, more teachers are doing. Yeah.
Yeah, I see that too with my clients, they're selling their coaching packages that includes these retreat experiences. And I think it's really valuable, because they get to meet online for such a long time, or a lot of times it would be for a community, online community, if they have an online community, they'll maybe have like a signature retreat that would run once or twice a year. And they would get a special discount for being in the membership as well. So I think those are some of the creative ways of retreating. And then yeah, I mean, I feel like we never really know what's going to happen with the world, right? And so I think that within the retreat industry, it's important to just know and understand that anything can happen. And so that we need to prepare ourselves financially for that too. So if whatever you're doing in your forecasting, just know, that if something were to shift, that is the case. Like, what else? What can you offer instead of that, as an upsell? So yeah, what else is there? Let me see here.
Yeah.
I'm also curious, like,
Yeah, I
what
have
you
a lot of
the how the industry and the market is trending post COVID. Yeah, that's
Yeah, I was gonna say when you had a riff off what you were saying earlier about like preparing and also now like post COVID, post pandemic, and like what are the changes, nimble and resilient, kind of what you were saying at the end there. So if something shifts, if your dates need to shift, your group isn't big enough, cool, take more time. So like, the only thing that I would say is different is, things might get funky more often than normal. So prepare for that so it's not a surprise. Be okay if like you're attached to a certain date and the sales are happening and you have to move to way later. Give yourself time, give yourself a year if you need. Who cares? Like, as long as you feel comfortable doing what you're doing. And yeah, the thing that we were saying at the end also, I think, is a big change because people are realizing that transformation takes a while. So I always like, no matter like what the retreat topic is, seeing what amount of time is really needed for the transformation you. Otherwise, it doesn't matter or not if it's not a continuous growth that evolves for somebody. So that it's still a 4 or 5 day retreat, but part of a larger education module. But yeah, I think people starting to think less about one-offs and more about like the volume of work that they want to bring to the world, and this as one of the mediums, that they get to paint that canvas with, maybe with online, with whatever they're comfortable with. But yeah, that's kind of the last part of it, I think.
Yeah, I think I'll add one more thing, which is, yeah, it's post-COVID, but there is some cases in some of the retreats that I've hosted and have been in, that people are still getting quote unquote COVID, right? And so just
Right.
needing to be prepared, like, okay, like making sure that ahead of time you have your people fill in their forms, that they are all signing that they're coming in clean. And then if someone does get it, that we could ask them to leave, that so those things are discussed ahead of time. So it's not like the white elephant in the room, but it's like already discussed. And if something were to happen, there's an easy exit strategy and everybody feels comfortable. Then there's no weirdness or uncomfortability or things like that. So I think that's really important to have in place, that when you send them the application form or the intake form, that these things are discussed ahead of time, so that they know what to expect if anything were to happen.
Yeah, and I also take it with the grain of salt because like we're in a world now where like people get it like who are arriving from a flight or whatever. So like we understand. Like I think in the beginning there was this big panic. Yeah, like if someone gets something, they there are ways to handle it. So it's all good.
Amazing. So I would love for you to talk a little bit, maybe just like a few points in your experience with having your retreat center, if there's anything like just big major points for people if they're even thinking about it. I think this is really like your arena of expertise, and so maybe just dropping in a few nuggets here for people that might be thinking of starting their own retreat center or buying a retreat center, just like zooming in on this piece as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Tish. So yeah, a lot of retreat leaders or teachers have come to me recently with this desire to open a retreat center or buy a retreat center. It's the work that I do now in VR Land Accelerator. We've helped a lot of people open retreat centers. We're doing about 20 different kinds of centers and land projects here. We've also helped a lot of people not start retreat centers and just build themselves a house for their family. Because the main thing I like to see is that they're not getting into another rat race, like an eco rat race. So if a teacher really wants to build this space and operate a space that's a home for already a successful teaching program, like I have one who has, 1,000 student a year program. Her building a space is not stressful to teach and fill. Maybe the building part is, so I help her build a team and build a budget and nail her vision and really like on the land development side. But the building of a space comes natural because her business requires it. Again, her desire was to do that. So yeah, if someone is now looking as part of their own freedom and path to sovereignty to take a leap to become a land steward and open a hospitality business, retreat center, rental, I always tell them to take it small, take it slow, build something that you can enjoy operating because, well, you saw me when I had my place. It was not as enjoyable at times because it's like owning a restaurant. You're constantly online. And so I urge them to really nail their vision in a way that they could live and have a good team to operate, have an operating team and scale down. You can always grow something. It's hard to scale down. And you've seen and I've seen friends launch big retreat center projects, even with a lot of money. And it's not about the money, it becomes really stressful. So yeah, I like to help and we could put a little link, but if you want to learn more about that, I have a lot of info on my website. So yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely no easy task. And there's a lot of pieces that needs to be thought through before you can actually say yes. I actually have a client who's been running retreats for over 10 years now, and she had this vision of starting a retreat center here in Costa Rica. And I think a big part of why she wanted to do that was because of the copious amounts of money that she's spending on hiring and renting retreat centers, right? But then I kind of backtracked a little bit with her, and all I did was like a little projection of like, okay, if it's going to cost $2 million or $5 million to start this retreat center, how long is it actually going to take for you to get this back? How many years and how much work and just being in a foreign country, like say, for instance, if you choose to start it in Costa Rica, there's so many facets that you need to take in consideration, from language to different ways of building and permits and all these kinds of things that might save you a really big headache. So if you want to learn more about that, feel free to reach out to Ed. He's really like the expert in this field and can support you and seeing and kind of doing a feasibility study to see if it's worth, your time and your energy to anchor in that dream. So yeah, I think this feels really good. So with the curator, Ed is going to also share another workshop. And Ed, do you want to talk a little bit about more what you're going to be teaching on that?
Yeah, surely. We'll dive kind of into the ins and outs of a bit of what it looks like to create spaces of different kinds, land division, land kind of financial model, and build a team for people who are interested in doing that, and a little bit of the insides of what it's being a retreat center owner for people who are retreat leaders and kind of the people in this community of curators. Kind of what are tips to successfully launching a retreat business and then a retreat center, the whole gamut, kind of some of the things you touched on here that we might want to go in a little deeper.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'm really excited to receive from you in the way of speaking from like the retreat center. I think it's important for us too, as curators and experience designers and retreat leaders, to know like what are some of the things that we can do to show up better and be in a better harmony, in terms of co-creating this experience, and what are some of the things that we need to look out for. So yeah, I'm really excited to explore that in our 3-month journey. So for those of you who are curious and interested, just shoot me a DM or an email and I'll set up a connection call and see if it's a good fit for us to work together. This is really an opportunity for people that either have a community of people that they've been working on, and or maybe they're just starting on working on with their community and they want to host maybe their first retreat and they don't know where to begin. Or they have a team of people and maybe they need training on how to execute these retreats. Or that it is someone like myself that, you have clients that have their communities and you organizing and curating their experiences. So the other piece is for people that is looking to enter into the world of festival production and curation. I'm having some experts coming in to teach on that as well, and I can share my experience too. And I feel within the field of festival curation and production, it's if you really understand the blueprint of what it takes to put such a big production together, and you have all of the spreadsheets and all of the pieces that come together, it can be really easy to plug you in and play and just see how that goes for you. You know, it's definitely important for you to have experience in it, but once you know the ins and outs of how it works, it can be really beneficial and supportive for you to explore that realm as well. Is there anything else, Ed, that you feel like adding that we can close off with?
No, I'm just grateful that you're sharing your wisdom and expertise with the world. Usually you're like one of the top people for top producers to work with in this space. So you just taking a pause from your busy life to offer this program is because it's tons of wisdom.
No.
So I'm and share any other nuggets from my background, but very grateful to collaborate with you and yeah, that you're doing this.
Oh, thank you so much, my love. I'm so excited. It's so amazing to share our gifts and our service with people that we love, you know. And for me, that's how I feel with you. It's like this beautiful collaboration with our friends that we're all in this realm, and we get to empower other people to step into their dharma and their service, you know, and not make the same mistakes that we did. And that's very exciting for me. You know, it's like being able to be a guide, you know, and say like, hey, try this, you know, see how that works for you, and see them thrive. So that's what I'm really excited about is to see these people come into the curator experience, and then in 3, 6, 9, 12 months, just see them accelerate and really amplify their message and through immersive experiences. Thank you so much for your time, Ed. I'm so grateful for you.
Thank you,
And
Tish.
yeah, I really love that you have a little Smurf there behind you. You actually look like brothers.
Yeah, he's my gnome. He's my homie gnome.
Totally no. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in, and excited to see you in the curator space. Have a beautiful day. Mwah. Ciao.